Welcome to the Dynasty Tailgate podcast brought to you by the IDP Army Podcast Network. It's good to be back on the Dynasty Tailgate. We had a fun week of college football this past weekend. Tennessee finally slayed the dragon, which is very exciting to see. I was really happy to see that. We got a couple of injuries that we're going to have to get to that are kind of not so good for these players, but hopefully, we could get a bounce back from them in one shape or form. And we also had a couple of breakouts that I've been waiting on, and we finally got them. But first, let's tailgate. Welcome. It's good to have you back this week. Great weekend of college football. Honestly, that was one of my favorite weekends that we've had in quite some time. Like just the excitement of the day, the upsets, the emotion. Like this is the kind of stuff you just cannot get in most any other sport, really, because pro football you can't even do some of the stuff that happened in that Alabama Tennessee game. So let's get right to that. Alabama versus Tennessee. It was Bryce Young. It was Hendon Hooker. It was back and forth and back and forth. And finally, the Alabama kicker thing finally came up to bite him. Here's the thing, though. Kind of saw this coming. I think we'd been talking about this for a couple weeks. At least I had been mentioning it, that Alabama's talent deficiency had kind of been catching up to them a little bit. They should have lost to Texas if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt in that game. I think we can all agree that was going to happen. Texas A&M, if they didn't have disastrous play calling, that was an L for Alabama. But, Texas A&M did Texas A&M things. And then finally they got to Tennessee, where Hendon Hooker is a really good quarterback. And even though Tennessee's defense leaves you something to be desired, it didn't matter. That's the thing. It did not matter. Even with Hendon Hooker having a disastrous fumble that looked like that was the difference in the game, he still was able to come back, lead him down the field, and kick that field goal at the end. So that was very exciting. Alabama's defense is a good part of that team. Was not particularly, super effective against a very good NFL caliber quarterback. His age is always going to be a question, Hendon Hooker, but at the same time, I think he's coming into the league ready to go. I think that he is prepared and ready to start right away. I don't think that he's going to need a few years to catch up to the speed. I think that I think he's got it. So I'm not worried about him. I think it's more of a Joe Burrow situation where he was kind of bouncing around the league and then got to the big leagues and was ready to go right away. I think Hendon Hooker is going to have a similar situation there. All right. And by the way, before we leave this game, Tennessee, do better, by the way. Asking the public to fund goalposts for your team because it got carried out of the stadium and thrown into the river after the game, which was a very exciting moment in college football. Maybe don't be nickel and diming the public for that. And I heard Pete Thamel on the ESPN College Football podcast say oh, well, can you imagine being a fan and you get to own a piece of the goalpost? You get to say that you had a piece of history. What is that? What kind of stupid reasoning is that at all? I'm sorry. Pete Thamel's a really smart guy. That is an idiotic thing to say. No 22-year-old is going to be sitting in the crowd my $5 went to that little end piece right there at the top of the goal. No, nobody's going to be saying that. Nobody at all under the age of 40 is going to be saying that I own a piece of little sliver of that goalpost. Nobody's going to be saying that. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Maybe you could convince a donor that that is a reason they should donate, an older, generation that wants to, is already pouring tons of money into the university. Maybe you could get that reasoning past them, but Pete Thamel, do better. 25 and 22-year-olds are not sitting there thinking let me give them $5 to fund this goalpost. This is the dumbest thing I ever heard. Universities should be paying for it. They're getting plenty of money anyway. No real reason. So yeah, Tennessee, do better. It was a fun weekend. We don't need to ruin it with that kind of situation. Quickly, Michigan played Penn State this weekend. Michigan had a convincing victory. Blake Corum is now officially on the radar. Blake Corum is a guy that we have been I have been kind of kicking the can down the road on. because the thing is they were playing Charmin soft opponents at the beginning of the season. Like we're talking, the ultra soft, FCS opponents at the beginning of the season, and they were not anybody that was actually going to give Michigan a real challenge. They finally faced a real challenge in Penn State, and they handled them very easily. And Blake Corum is a running back that's rising in the ranks right now as we speak. I think he's going to end up being like 5 or 6 when it's all said and done, because it does not matter the opponent, apparently. He's just always going to be there. The one thing about Michigan, though, is like last year they had Hassan Haskins, who was having, in my opinion, a similar season to this for them. And, Hassan Haskins isn't really doing much in Tennessee. I mean, given he's playing behind Derrick Henry, but like it's still, you would hope to see a little bit of those earlier flashes. But I don't know. It's just something to keep in mind going forward. 2 injuries that we need to talk about before we move on is one, Devin Leary for NC State. He's having surgery. He's going to be out for the season. I'm taking off my draft board. I just don't. He's a junior. I don't see a way that he doesn't come back for a senior season. Try to put up a better, display to maybe get him into that top 5 running or top 5 quarterbacks of next season, because he was probably never going to get there this season. Let's be completely honest with ourselves. And the way that his season had already been a roller coaster before that, and with his surgery, I cannot see him wanting to declare for the draft and not coming back. So I don't know. We'll see officially. He's not announced that either way, but he has announced that he'll be out for the season. And it sucks for NC State. Really, it really does. But, I think I'm going to take him off the draft board. Also, Jordan Addison for USC suffered an ankle injury late in that Utah game this weekend that they lost in. Argument could be said once he was out, there was no real shot that USC was going to come back in that one. But the thing is like, we don't know how bad the injury is yet. I would say he's definitely not playing this week. That seems like a really big stretch to say that he would be playing. But I also haven't heard whether it's like a long term, whether it's like it was a stinger that he got up from after the game will be fine. I don't know. So something I'm going to be monitoring, though. He's technically my wide receiver 1 right now, and wide receiver 2 has been out since week 1. So it's kind of a rough year for the wide receivers so far. But, injuries happen. Drake London got hurt last year. He still ended up as the number 1 wide receiver. And he didn't even run at the combine. And Jameson Williams obviously couldn't run at the combine because he had an ACL injury. Been out, still was a first-round draft pick. So I don't think it's going to affect their draft stock necessarily. But it does just suck, A, to not see them play the sport, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to watch them play football. And B, this could affect their ability to test later on in the the combine process, because they're going to need that, I think. I still think they're going to go high, whether they test or not, because it's been proven that you can do it. Especially with Jackson Smith-Njigba, who has not played yet, and I hope that he can put some good games on film this season, because you really only have last season when he was the number 3 fiddle at the beginning of the season. You see what Marvin Harrison Jr. is doing with Ohio State this season. It kind of feels like it might be a system, even though Garrett Wilson's been fine. Chris Olave has been a revelation for the Saints this season. So I don't want to make it seem like that bad, but it would be nice for Jackson Smith-Njigba to get a couple games out there for Ohio State, especially since they're going to be making a national title push. Real quick, before we completely move on to our topic of the day, Dalton Kincaid, tight end for Utah. Welcome to the party. I had him number 4 on my tight ends list for most of the year. By the way, all of my rankings are now in the IDP index. They will be in there. They have their own little section for rookies in 2023. So anytime you need a reference, any of these names I'm talking about, or even want to just look at it, they're in the index. And you can click any of the links in the bios to figure out how to get into that index. Jordan will get you in there, and you can see those anyway. But Dalton Kincaid was number 4 going into this weekend, and I'm having a hard time keeping him out of the top 2. Jaheim Bell's still number 2 for me, and obviously Michael Mayer is number 1, but he's rising up there. It's between him, Darnell Washington, and Braden Willis is really getting my attention for Oklahoma, because he's just so versatile. I don't know how he might not find his way onto a team and be very useful really quickly there. So that's all we'll put for week 7. Put week 7 behind us. Week 8, I'm not going to lie to you, the slate's kind of good, kind of bad. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Today's topic, we are going to break down the 2023 PFF mock draft. That's what we're going to break down today. I know that you all know that we have a love-hate affair with PFF on this podcast and this entire podcast network. Honestly, all the IDP Army. We have certain issues with the way that they rank certain players. It doesn't make a lot of sense a whole lot of the time. But we're going to break down their podcast. We're going to break down their mock draft. It just came out last week. So we're just going to dive right into that. People on the podcast feed, I will be talking through it. YouTube feed, you're going to be able to see everything that I'm saying. So if you're on podcast and you want to watch this, finish out the episode because we need to listen. Just kidding. And then go watch it on YouTube. But you will be able to see the players and the little blurbs about them as I'm talking as well. So we'll go ahead and bring that up. All right, there we are. Like I said, this came out, I think, October 5th. So we are a couple weeks behind it, but this is just the newest mock draft, and I think it still holds a lot of weight and water for where we are right now in the draft process, even though I'm probably going to disagree with PFF by quite a few things, but we'll see. All right, number 1 is the Houston Texans taking C.J. Stroud. I think this is a lock at this point, to be honest. If Houston's number 1, they're taking a quarterback, and C.J. Stroud, I think, kind of fits the mold of what they would want in a quarterback. I know that a lot of people have been mentioning the Ohio State quarterback success thing as being an actual problem. I personally think it's not a problem. It's just, some players are better than others. And honestly, like CJ Stroud's better than Justin Fields, better than Dwayne Haskins was at Ohio State, better than Troy Smith when he won. I think he won the Heisman that year when he won when he was taken in the first round. Like, he's better than any of them. Like, it's no big deal. I think CJ Stroud's the right pick here. Houston's going to get a great quarterback in CJ Stroud. All right, number 2 is the Seattle Seahawks for them, taking Will Anderson from Alabama. I think this is a great idea for Seattle. Although they need a quarterback, so taking Bryce Young would make a lot of sense here. I actually kind of like the idea of Seattle trying to build back that defense that they have been known for years. Their defense is not amazing right now, but they have a couple of players. Tariq Woolen, 5th-round rookie this year, has been really huge for them. I just think that if you build the defense, the offense can always come around, and you can still get a quarterback later on in this draft if you're Seattle and not feel too badly about it. Number 3, they have the Jets, which is kind of funny looking back because there's no way the Jets will be this high now, but they would take Jalen Carter, defensive lineman from Georgia. I actually don't know if I completely agree with him. I mean, they love defense. Jets do. I do understand why they would be doing that. And Jalen Carter is probably the best defensive player this year. I mean, Will Anderson's going to get the headlines and be, the top build guy, but Jalen Carter might be the most useful person to put in there, but he was injured, so that might knock him down a few spots, but probably not many. Number 4, PFF is, they love being controversial, but number 4, Chicago Bears select Bryce Young, the quarterback from Alabama. This makes no sense at all. I'm sorry. Like, I know that this is going to come off as me being a hater towards PFF, and I promise I'm not trying to be, but why in the world would they take another quarterback with no weapons? Bryce Young's already having the struggle of his life at Alabama this year with 0 weapons. So now you're going to put him on Chicago, where he equally doesn't have any weapons. Plus, you've got Justin Fields there that you drafted 2 years ago. This makes no sense. This is a stupid idea. Sorry, PFF. I love you to death. No, I don't. And this one would hurt. All right, so we'll just move on for that because there's no shot the Bears are taking a quarterback this year. It's silly. They need to take a wide receiver. Number 5, they have the Washington Commanders taking Will Levis from Kentucky. This is actually smart. I like this a lot. Will Levis is exactly the kind of quarterback that Washington would like. I don't think they are into the, mobile quarterback game. So they want a pro style quarterback, and Will Levis is probably CJ Stroud's better than him at pro style, I think. But Will Levis is number 2 in that category. And so I think Washington taking Will Levis here is a smart play. I think that's really good. Number 5 might be a little rich for my blood, but if you got your quarterback you want, you got to go as high as you can go to get him. Number 6, they have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking Brian Breesy. I actually think I think the Pittsburgh Steelers might finish lower, and I think they might end up with Jalen Carter. But if they don't, Brian Breesy's a really good pick out of Clemson. And I think that would be very good for the rebuilding of that defense because they have TJ Watt and a lot of guys that have been kind of shaky, but not always that bad. Number 7, they have who is definitely going to get the number 1 pick, by the way, is the Carolina Panthers taking edge rusher Myles Murphy from Clemson. I don't think this is going to happen for the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to take a quarterback. I think they have Bryce Young probably headed there, maybe CJ Stroud, but maybe it could happen. Number 8, they have Atlanta Falcons taking Peter Skoronski from an offensive tackle from Northwestern. The Falcons do need O-line help, so I do understand what they're doing there. Like I do understand it, but I think they need an actual quarterback. I don't think Marcus Mariota is a long-term solution. They can continue to kick the can down the road as long as they want, but the thing is they're going to have Calvin Ridley, they're going to have Drake London, and they're going to have Kyle Pitts there. You're going to have to get somebody that can actually distribute the ball, and it's clearly not Marcus Mariota. They have done a lot of good things this season, but honestly, I think that's more telling of how close the Atlanta Falcons are to being competitive than they actually are away from, if you put the right quarterback in that situation, you're going to, that level is going to go up higher. And the ceiling for Marcus Mariota, I don't think is near the floor of a quarterback you could get here at number 8. Number 9, they have the dumbest idea of all time. So they have number 9, they have Detroit Lions selecting quarterback Tanner McKee from Stanford. I don't know what else to tell you. Jared Goff has not played that bad this year for one thing. So it's not really that big of a deal if he stays there another year, if they do not want to take a quarterback in this class. But if they do actually want to take a quarterback in this class, the Detroit Lions, it better hell not be Tanner McKee from Stanford. He is not even in the top 10 of quarterbacks. I do not see what some of these guys are seeing in him. I know that they really are like infatuated with his ability to throw it into a tight window. And while that is a cool thing to be able to do, it's not exactly one of the top 5 things that I would think the Detroit Lions would be looking for in a quarterback. Like, he's tall. Like, this seems like one of those classic mistakes that the drafts have been telling us every freaking year, do not do. This all goes back to Brock Osweiler, in my opinion. But he's 6'6", he's not mobile, and he can throw a bomb if he's got somebody wide open, but like he's not ever going to have that. So I just think this is a terrible idea. I'm probably going to come back to eat my words with Tanner McKee, but he is not going the number 4 quarterback in the class. I will pay actual money to somebody. I don't even know. Charity would be a weird thing to bet on, but I would pay actual money to somebody in a bet if Tanner McKee went top 4 quarterbacks. So we'll move on from that foolishness. Number 10 is the New England Patriots selecting cornerback Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. I think they got a player in Jack Jones now, so I don't really know if they're going to need a cornerback. I don't think the Patriots necessarily need one of those. I think they need to be headed at wide receiver. I know that they don't like doing that, and clearly, as we have told from this mock draft so far, PFF does not value wide receiver position that much, but I think the New England Patriots need to be headed towards a wide receiver, if I can be perfectly honest with you. The Giants taking edge Nolan Smith from Georgia. This would be interesting for the Giants. I don't think edge rusher is a top need for them. I mean, in this quote on here, it says the edge is an edge need is obvious in New York. Is it? They got Kayvon Thibodeau there, who's an edge rusher, and they have Azeez Ojulari, who's not been awful. I don't know. I think they have an offensive-minded head coach in there, and I think the offensive-minded head coach sees the obvious need at wide receiver. I don't really understand why they would take anyone not named, at this point, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Like, I don't see how in the world they would make it that way. Just no clue. Number 12 is Isaiah Foskey. This is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles have, they got that trade from New Orleans last year, and they got edge rusher Isaiah Foskey from Notre Dame going there. I don't dislike this pick. I think Philadelphia has need at O-line more than this because I think that their O-line is the strength of the team right now. And I think that if you want to continue to pound that as their strength, then you need to be building it up. Now, edge rusher, they could take one and then him be an every other down back, or every other down player, but they already have plenty of defense waiting in the wings there. I don't know if this is necessarily the biggest need for them. Basically, I have disagreed with PFF on a lot of these takes so far. So, whoops. Number 13, they have the Cleveland Browns would have traded this pick to Houston, and they picked Jordan Addison, number 13. So your first wide receiver taken in this draft is Jordan Addison. Smart minds think alike, I guess. Houston Texans have an obvious need at wide receiver as well. They hope to get John Mechie back next year with his leukemia situation that he has got going on, which we all hope that he recovers from completely. If they were able to have Mechie, Jordan Addison, maybe if they could retain Brandon Cooks for another year, that would be a serviceable staff, and especially if they can get a quarterback like C.J. Stroud in there, I think that could be really good things for them. Number 14, they have Bijan Robinson going to the Arizona Cardinals. I like that the Arizona Cardinals need a running back. That is the thing I do like about this. I cannot possibly see a running back going this high this year. Bijan Robinson is way better than what they have been dealing with there. But at the same time, I just hard to believe that they would do this at number 14. I would love to see it, though. And this would automatically make Bijan Robinson the number one pick in every dynasty draft if this happened. It just would, obviously. All right, number 15, Jacksonville Jaguars. They have Quentin Johnston from TCU. I don't have any notes for this. This is a brilliant pick, a smart pick for them. Exactly what they need, to be honest with you. I don't know why that just pulled up on the side over there. Let's just exit out of that. Okay, on to number 16, Tennessee Titans select Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. If he was to fall that far, Tennessee would be in. Can you imagine if they took Treylon Burks one year and then Jackson Smith-Njigba the next? That would be the wildest thing ever, and I would love it. It's chaos filled, but I don't know if that's necessarily the biggest need for Tennessee Titans. Although I would love that. Number 17, Las Vegas Raiders select offensive tackle Paris Johnston Jr. from Ohio State. This is a good idea. The Raiders O-line stinks. Moving on. 18, Indianapolis Colts select cornerback Kelee Ringo from Georgia. Also, brilliant move. They need a cornerback, and Ringo is probably one of the better cornerback guys we've had in a while. Now, Sauce Gardner is in an elite status of his own. I will put him in a different status. I still don't understand why the Texans didn't take Sauce Gardner, but that is for another day to figure out, I suppose. And Kelee Ringo to the Colts is a brilliant move for them. Number 19, the Dallas Cowboys select edge rusher Jared Verse from Florida State. Verse was amazing at the beginning of the season. He hasn't really been as good since, but you pair him with Micah Parsons, I don't have any notes for the Dallas Cowboys doing that. Their defense would be ferocious. It's already really good now. I can't even imagine adding that onto it. Number 20, the Los Angeles Chargers select offensive tackle Olu Fashanu from Penn State. They need O-line help, which is shocking, but the Chargers, I don't really know if they have a whole lot of needs other than I could see them maybe taking a wide receiver later on in this because I don't know if they technically trust Josh Palmer or not. But yeah, I can see this. They need O-line help because they've needed that for the last couple of years. Number 21, Seattle Seahawks from the Denver Broncos select edge rusher Andre Carter from Army. Now, this would be fascinating if the Seattle Seahawks did this. It really would. Andre Carter has not been able to do exactly what he did last season just yet. Like, at least we're not seeing it. But they also, every defense or every O-line and everyone has been figuring out, hey, if we double block him, the rest of the Army defense isn't as good as him. So this is a good pick, honestly, and Andre Carter would be a solid IDP pick if this was to come to fruition. Number 22, the Cincinnati Bengals would select Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. No notes here. Give Joe Burrow more weapons. Michael Mayer is better than Hayden Hurst, and this is actually would be a really brilliant pick for the Bengals. I do think they need some defensive adjustment or defensive additions, but you don't necessarily need it this year. So number 23, the Miami Dolphins from the Trey Lance pick get Trenton Simpson, linebacker from Clemson. This is pretty smart as well. I mean, honestly, Mike McDaniels needed that on their defense. Miami might disagree, and I think they might need O-line help a little bit more, to be honest. But it's still, I could see them going after a linebacker. I think they might do O-line first, linebacker second, but I don't know. Who knows? Number 24 is the Miami Dolphins forfeited pick. So the actual number 24 would be Minnesota Vikings selecting edge Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech. I haven't really gotten to talk about Tyree Wilson a whole lot from Texas Tech this year. And going into the season, I really did not think that he was going to be, really high on a lot of draft boards, but he's just been completely unstoppable so far this season. It's been outrageous to watch Texas Tech games and see this freak of nature coming off the edge, and he has just been completely dominant against O-lines in the Big 12 this season. So it's a good pick. Number 25, Baltimore Ravens select safety Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. Now, if the Ravens took another safety in the first round, after taking Kyle Hamilton last year, I don't think the fan base would love this a whole lot. I think that he would not be a safety for long. I don't think that he would be a safety on the Baltimore Ravens. I think he would be a different player in the secondary, which they do need help in the secondary, just maybe not safety. I don't know. I don't know about this one. Baltimore Ravens would be really bold to pull this off, though. Detroit Lions from the Jared Goff trade from Los Angeles select defensive lineman Siaki Ika from Baylor. He's a good nose tackle. Detroit Lions need defensive help. It's not really that complicated to figure out past that. I do think Detroit might look a different direction, but that is not a bad decision. 27, Tampa Bay Buccaneers select cornerback Tyreek Stevenson from Miami, Florida. The Buccaneers are going to need cornerbacks because they don't have the cap space to pull off picking up both of their free agents they have in the cornerback department. So they're going to need one. This isn't a bad pick. I think they're going to be a lot higher in the draft process, given this is from October 5th. So just everybody who's like, Tampa Bay 27th, that's weird. They're going to be a higher pick. So I think they're going to get a better wide receiver or better player, maybe not a wide receiver. 28, Green Bay Packers select wide receiver Josh Downs from North Carolina. Kind of love it. I don't see the Green Bay Packers picking this. I don't see them finally making this the year that they pick a wide receiver in the first round. It just would be too hilarious if they did that. But if they did, Josh Downs is not a bad selection. He would definitely be a slot corner or slot wide receiver. And Aaron Rodgers needs a trusted one of those. So we'll see. Kansas City Chiefs at number 29 would select edge Adomwa Adobawari from Northwestern. I apologize for butchering that name. I guess you could see the Chiefs taking an edge rusher at this late in the ball game. I think they should still go secondary personally. I know that that's probably not a very popular opinion, but the next pick that's on this list I think should definitely go there, but we'll see. This isn't a bad pick for them. I don't really know much about the player, unfortunately. I haven't watched a lot of Northwestern defensive football to give this one that much of a thought. Number 30, the Philadelphia Eagles would select cornerback Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. Their reasoning is that Darius Slay is not going to survive the offseason at $26 million. I personally think they just restructure the deal and don't take a cornerback. I think they should just, maybe pick up a wide receiver, if anything. But, you can never have too many cornerbacks. So if they do lose Darius Slay, Joey Porter Jr. for Penn State has been a fantastic player this year. He's probably been a top 3 cornerback in the league, and that's been pretty exciting to see. And then number 31, finally we're at the end. Buffalo Bills select defensive lineman Keandre Coburn from Texas. Texas finally back in the first round draft pick class, which is exciting to see. But I don't know. I mean, Buffalo Bills, this is a need. I don't know if it's the need that they have, but we'll see. Wouldn't hate this for the Buffalo Bills defense. It would be something to watch, though, for sure. Okay, well, that is the first mock draft that we have broken down this year. Some good picks in there, some really PFF picks in there. Some of those I just really would be shocked to see happen. And there's some player like they didn't have very many quarterbacks going in the first round, which I don't think anybody other than PFF's thinking is going to happen. Because like, where was Hendon Hooker? Given 2 weeks ago, we didn't know maybe he was a first rounder, but definitely we're thinking about it. Anthony Richardson needs to be getting that call. Sam Hartman also needs to be getting that call. I think, if I could be honest, they don't have Kayshon Boutte in there at all, which, like, what are we doing there, PFF? Like, really? You don't think Kayshon Boutte is going to go in the first round of the NFL draft? Like, that's really silly. How about I put it, the nice way? Definitely some improvements in there that would be made. And I'm sure the next one that comes out will probably have a couple more of those players that we've been talking about these past couple of weeks. But that's all I got for you this week. There are some couple interesting games this weekend that I think should be noted. One is Oregon versus UCLA. I really am taking an interest in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback from UCLA. He's been really good this season, and we haven't really given him much attention because my attention has been mainly focused on that backfield with Zach Charbonnet, but whatever. Wake Forest is Phil Jurkovec versus Sam Hartman. Not quite the powerhouse battle that you would be thinking that it might be, but it could spark some fireworks. I'm interested to see. Texas plays Oklahoma State. I'm more interested to see Texas and Bijan Robinson against that pretty darn good Oklahoma State defensive line. It's been pretty good this season, but we'll see. And then Alabama plays Mississippi State. Only reason I just want to mention it, Mississippi State, they had a couple hiccups this year so far, but they are nothing. They're no team to sneeze at. They are definitely a good, solid team, and they definitely need to be taken seriously. And I would just like to see Will Rogers against that Alabama defense because I think he might be a quarterback that we need to be thinking about. And I guess we'll see if it happens or not. But some good games this weekend. Go out there, watch some football. I enjoyed talking to you all this weekend. Hopefully you can check this out on YouTube if you're only listening on the podcast. If not, we will see you next week on the Dynasty Tailgate podcast. Peace.